Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another wonderful episode of Help for the Guildless. My name, of course, is Antoine. Now, I had something completely different planned, but I guess I'll do Riley next week. Phrasing. Oh, I felt the bile go up in the back of my throat. I didn't mean do Riley. I mean respond to something Riley said next week. Sorry, I'm still a little sick from that. That thought is revolting. But not as revolting as what has come across my desk. The title of this article made me think that maybe it was a joke. But no, it's an actual article. No, it's on Heat Street, which on some days Heat Street is awesome. On other days Heat Street is one of the worst possible publications out there. I guess it depends on who's editing what. But the headline is what it is. Professor says male student's paper was so triggering she had trouble distinguishing him from her rapist. Now, I was going to do a dramatic reading for this, but then I realized it was an article. It was normal. I'm going to read through it. It's not that long, and I'm going to give my opinions on certain things like I normally do. Let's get right into it, shall we? Now, this is just done by the Heat Street staff, so I don't know exactly who wrote this. A feminist professor, which is very good to distinguish. This is a professor, not just a teacher. This is a college professor. Said she was so triggered by a male student's paper that, quote, I began to have trouble distinguishing him from the man that raped me, unquote. Now, when I do this, I'm going to embellish a little on how she said, because some of the things she says is just stupid. So this is, I guess, partial opinion piece on the article and partial dramatic reading. Take from it what you will. Writing anonymously in Inside Higher Education, the professor described a lesson on rape culture she included in her gender class, saying she was frustrated with male students skeptical that it exists. But one male student's paper left her thrown back into a pit of traumatic, fragmented memories. The student cited a men's rights advocacy group, J'accuse, referenced a case where a woman raped a man, my pearls, questioned whether feminism was relevant, good on you, sir, and said that concerns about gender inequality were overblown. Those four things are enough to send most liberal snowflakes into fits of rage, and this student used it as a paper in a gender class. Now, I don't understand why he was in the gender class, but good on him. Maybe he thought it was an easy A. Who knows? Maybe he got thrown in there. But using those four things, and if he cited it well enough, that paper I would love to read. The professor thought the paper was not well sourced. Of course she didn't. And that the argument wasn't sufficiently supported. Of course she didn't. But that wasn't all. As I went over his paper, she wrote, I realized that I was reading a paper that sounded word for word like something the man who raped me would say. And not only did this sound like something my rapist would say, this student fit the same demographic profile as him, white, college male, between the ages of 18 and 22. Because, of course, every white male who is between the ages of 18 and 22 are nothing but men who go out and can't control their urges. They just have to grab someone and do the deed behind the nearest bushes, or maybe behind a dumpster. She said she was so upset that she could no longer grade papers or read. Well, I guess it's time to break out the box wine then, isn't it? Quote, although I knew it was unlikely that this student would literally try to rape me, his words felt so familiar that I began having trouble distinguishing him from the man that did. Their words were so frighteningly similar that the rational instructor side of my brain could not overpower the trauma survivor side. The problem that I have is with a couple key phrases. Now, we don't know if this woman knew her rapist. So when she says something that's akin to what the man who raped her would say, she's projecting. If she didn't know her rapist, she doesn't know how he would talk. She is making a man of straw and using that to defend against her own insecurities, and projecting those insecurities on this student, on this male student, who happens to fit the demographic of thousands of others. That's what makes this so fucking stupid. The demographic is a 5-year difference for white college-going males. That's a lot of fucking people. So she doesn't know how her rapist would talk. She just assumes that this student and how he worded his paper is exactly how her rapist spoke. I'll continue. She recounts screaming, "Zero! You get a fucking zero!" at the computer screen as she graded the student's 2-page paper, saying that she also felt that simply by writing the paper he had undermined her authority as an instructor. Woman, listen, please. For the love of God. He's not trying to undermine you. You asked for this paper. You asked for this. You assigned it. And just because he used 4 things that completely throw away everything you believe as a feminist professor does not mean that he's trying to undermine you. She continues. I imagined him sitting on the other side of his computer screen, laughing at my pain, joking about my distress. I imagined him being friends with my rapist. Though the man who raped me is now significantly older than this student, he is frozen in that 18 to 22 age bracket in my mind. So, again with the projection, this student doesn't know that you've been attacked. This student knows nothing about what happened to you. But you automatically assume, because he fits a very wide demographic, that he's just going to laugh at it. He's going to laugh it off. He's taking a gender class, which means he must care about some form of it. He may not agree with the term rape culture, or the fact that there may not be one in college campuses today, but that doesn't mean he doesn't believe that it happens. And it also doesn't mean that he's going to callously just laugh at someone who had it happen to them. And again, you said you imagine him. This is all you, in your head. She says never receiving any training to guide her through how to grade a paper that sounds like something my rapist would say, speculating that other professors who survived rape might also be similarly triggered. And the projection continues. The boy, and I can call him that because of the age demographic she gives, was just writing a paper. And on top of that, it's a 2-page paper. If this is actual college, that 2-page paper is about 6 paragraphs. And those 6 paragraphs are double-spaced. And the 6 paragraphs are only 6 paragraphs because he needs the paper to be done. Citations on the 3rd page, and he's done. You got triggered by about 400 words. This wasn't a cataclysmic thesis statement that is something between 200 and 300 pages long. This was 2 pages. She continues. And this is the last little bit, as far as I can tell. How, I wondered, could I possibly evaluate this student's work in an unbiased fashion? Such a request would involve me living an entirely different life than the one that I have had. Well then, I guess it just means you should stop teaching. No, I'm serious about that. If you can't distinguish between someone who wrote a 2-page paper and something that happened to you in your history, then you do not deserve to be an academic teacher. Gender class or not, feminist or not, if you can't handle the fact that it was a young man who wrote something that you completely disagree with, then it's time to move on. Or go to an all-girls school and teach there. And then you don't have to worry about it. Until, of course, one of those female students writes the same type of paper because she doesn't agree with you. And that's where I have a problem. Because if the roles were reversed, and I know this is a term that feminists and SJWs hate to be used against them, if the roles were reversed, that male teacher would have been told to suck it up. And if he failed that student, he would be fired for gender bias. Gender bias, otherwise known as sexism. But of course, because it's a woman, well, she gets coddled. And on top of that, that's if she's even talked to the HR department. This was written anonymously. So, we have nothing to go on. We don't even know if this is true. We just had a recent article that made its rounds around the internet that turned out to be a giant troll, and a world-class one at that. What makes this any different? We have no idea who wrote that column, that opinion piece. And I'm not talking about Heat Street, I'm talking about this teacher recounting her encounter with her own delusions. But it's quite simple. If you cannot academically grade a paper, even if it sounds like something that someone you possibly think could say, if you can't grade it by taking emotion out of it, you need to quit and find something else. And if this is a true tale, who's saying this isn't the 2nd or 3rd or 8th time this has happened? We're just finding out about it now, and that's because, well, she feels comfortable enough to try and play victim. Being an academic, especially someone who is teaching at the college level and is this mentally damaged, needs to seek help. Put your career aside and seek mental help. How come I can be so callous? I can almost hear you asking, because I've been to some very dark places in this world. I have been beaten and broken, although I've never been mugged. I've been molested. Thank God it wasn't me as a child, but me as an adult. And when I said I didn't like it, I got told to man up. I have met women who have been raped and seen the impact it has on them, but I've also seen them come back from it and move on with their lives. I know the darkness this world holds, so I am very comfortable in saying this woman needs to quit her job as a teacher, as a professor, until she gets her mental state right. Because young men aged 18 to 22 who are college bound already have enough on their plate than to have some teacher lose her fucking marbles because of a paper. And that's all I really have to say. I'd love to know your thoughts. Let me know in the comments below. If you liked what I had to say, hit like, share, and subscribe. If you didn't like what I have to say, let me know in the comments. We can talk. All of the relevant links will be down below, especially the link to this article. Thank you for listening, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Help for the Guildless. My name, once again, is Antoine, and I hope all of you have a very wonderful evening.